welcome back to another episode of Getting Speakers Book, a podcast by speakers for speakers. And today I'm so excited to have my guest Caleb with us today. Caleb, thank you so much for the time today. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you for taking some time here this morning to chat. I'm excited.
Of course. Well, Caleb and I met a little bit ago, through, he was just visiting my BNI chapter. We had scheduled a one-to-one and we just had such a great time learning about what we do. But I was really resonating with what Caleb was really passionate about. He just wears a lot of hats and he has a very decked out LinkedIn. So every time he posts, I just get so much value. So I'm just really excited to have Caleb on today. So Caleb, why don't you kick us off and just tell us a little bit about you and how you got into the speaking world?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you again. And for me, it was probably around 5 years ago when I had the opportunity to join a local Toastmasters chapter.
Mm,
Now, if you're not familiar with Toastmasters, for those listening, it's an international, global organization. It's actually a nonprofit educational organization that helps to equip people with the skills and the mindset and the actual practice of speaking and doing it within a safe environment with others that are growing from all different stages, some that are really polished and are speaking on big stages, others that are coming out of college and are looking for more opportunities to speak. And I had the opportunity to be invited because I shared with one of the leaders of this local chapter that I wanted to get into speaking more and become more confident. And that was really important to me because as I've gotten older and coming through a lot of different things growing up, I wanted to find my voice and find that sense of confidence in my voice, confidence in my message, and then just being comfortable with the ability to articulate and clearly communicate to other people the things that I was passionate about. And I've found in sales and business, in relationships, a lot of that really does hinge on our ability to communicate effectively and clearly and honestly. And
yes.
that's what initially got me so excited about public speaking is that ability to go in front of a room full of 20 people or 2,000 people, and through your ability to communicate and draw people in with your words, with the structure of those words, with your tonality, you really can make a big mark and have an incredible influence through your ability to communicate. So
Hmm.
that's a little bit about what got me started and why I became so passionate about speaking in general, is because of the potential influence that you could have on somebody else or a group of people through your ability to speak.
Absolutely. And Toastmasters is just such a great way to bring a safe environment to people who, like you said, are new at this or they're kind of getting started on their own, or possibly just to come back to the program. I know so many speakers. I mean, even for myself, I did public speaking classes and stuff when I was in middle school. But then obviously took a few years off. Then we had COVID. So Toastmasters was just a great way for me to start exercising the muscles again of speaking, volunteering to speak, which, as you know, with is I'm like forgetting the name on it, but like the impromptu part of the session,
Hmm.
um, just being getting used to speaking on the fly, like all of that. There's just so many great skills that you can get at Toastmasters that it translates to how we just talk on a day-to-day basis, not even in front of a stage.
Yeah, and I realized that too as I became more consistent with Toastmasters, that it wasn't just my ability to speak in front of an audience that
Mm,
became more polished and
right.
poised, if you want to use that word. It also resonated and crossed over to my individual relationships. I would have people say to me in a conversation, "Wow, you're very well spoken," and I was like, "Wow, that's amazing." But I realized that that was through the practice week after week after week with Toastmasters and through the different portions of the meeting that prompted you to speak with no preparation, to speak on random topics, and not only be able to speak confidently, but be able to organize your thoughts and then be able to speak in an organized, understanding way based on those thoughts. Just totally. on the fly, and being able to speak and think on your feet became so important. And then I realized through networking and relationship building that these same principles apply your ability to communicate. And it
Mm-hmm.
just became such a big passion because the more you're able to communicate, the deeper you're able to go with somebody, and then the more trust and the more depth and substance you're able to have in relationships, which is something I think a lot of people are striving for and longing for in today's society that's so disconnected, is to be able to connect in a meaningful way with others. But if you think
Mm-hmm.
about it, that really only comes through our ability to communicate effectively.
Oh, absolutely. And I think what you mentioned about organizing your thoughts before speaking, that's a huge skill that it takes a lot for anyone to learn. I know so many times I've been in conversations and we get excited and we want to talk about a story, but we start talking about like point Z and then point D and then point A. And then it's like, I don't know what the story is or what what the message of the story is. What were you trying to tell me? I have no idea. But I'm sure it was a great story, a great experience, but the way that it's sometimes said to someone who has no context about something, you're like, I have no idea what you said, and I feel bad because you spent 15 minutes talking and I didn't absorb a single thing, and that feel makes me feel bad. So there are just so many nuances on the different skills you can develop. Toastmasters by yourself with a great group of people, or just some skills that we should constantly be developing. But switching gears just a little bit, I would love for you to talk. What are some of the topics that you talk about? What are you really passionate about sharing?
Yeah, and kind of continuing on the thoughts that I was sharing in terms of relationship building and networking, helping other people in a world today that's so digitally connected, but socially and emotionally disconnected, if that makes any sense. I think
Yes.
people today have a lot of like artificial or counterfeit forms of connection with others. And even when it comes to networking, a lot of people kind of treat it as a social exercise because they're lonely or because they're craving authentic, real community. And so they network and they go to happy hours and have a drink and they feel a sense of connectivity through that and a sense of bonding. But the reality is networking is work. And part of that work is being transparent and vulnerable with other people when you have the opportunities. That doesn't mean that you should just go and share your deepest, darkest secrets with every
Right.
single person you meet, because that can get you into a lot of trouble depending on the context. So you want to do it with people that are in an environment that's safe to do so. But the reality is, we are more lonely, more isolated, more unfulfilled, more addicted than ever before in today's society. And that's just a fact. Like, no, nobody would even argue with that because it's all around us. You go to the grocery store, you go to the bank, you go to the theme parks, and you see it. You see people, their faces are stuck in their phones. They don't know how to think on their feet. They don't know how to problem solve together. They don't know how to collaborate. They don't know how to, work together as a group to do different things. Resolve conflict. That's a huge challenge right now in today's society. And for me, I look at the root cause of those things as our inability as human beings to connect and interact with other human beings face to face, right? So that's the thing that I'm really passionate about. I've given countless talks at Toastmasters about these different things on communication, listening, relationship building, how to be more intentional when you go to an event or when you're with your friends. What does it really look like to develop yourself, but then more importantly, begin developing those around you through the questions you're asking and the conversations you're having? Then you become the magnet, you become the person of value, you become a connector, you become like a linchpin in your communities because you're that person that brings people together in an authentic, meaningful way. You prompt meaningful discussions that leave you feeling really fulfilled, and then it leaves everybody else around you feeling great about their interactions with you. So that's
Hmm.
that's what I'm really passionate about.
Absolutely. And I love the different points you touched on and being vulnerable, but obviously knowing what does that even mean in a networking professional capacity. Because I can't tell you the amount of times that, it's the pendulum has swung like both sides. You know, one time someone will say something and I'm like, I know, I do not believe you. Like they're saying they're boasting about all these amazing achievements and like how well they're doing. And I'm not saying that some people are not telling the truth or some people are just not excited, but sometimes you have that conversation, you can feel that they're like playing it up for you. You know, you just ask a basic question, they launch into all these things, and you go, this seems inauthentic. This does not seem like you, or there's something wrong here. And I'm like, I am concerned now. And then there's the other way where, you go, hey, how's business? And then it's, 20 minutes all about them on the absolute dump side. So it's definitely an art of knowing where should you lie as in a networking event, especially because in person, I feel like people more than ever, going back to what you're saying, there's so much distrust and so much hurt in the world, that almost networking events are more important than they've almost ever been. Having that connection one to one, like you're giving so much time to someone when you're talking to them in person like this, when you're going out, when you're making the drive, that people maybe put more value into it than they did when it was just kind of a granted everyone had to go to a networking event. Now you don't. So it's very different, and I loved all the points that you touched on. It's so important. I mean, just to wrap this up, you've given so much great nuggets and so much great insight. But if you had to say, like, what is maybe one or two actionable step or something that someone can take away after the listening to this and go, okay, this is the first thing I need to work on if I'm maybe like a new speaker or I'm maybe coming back to speaking after a long time.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think one of the most important things for me and what I've seen to be most helpful for others is being in an environment, whether that's a Toastmasters
Mm,
chapter or it's just a local group of friends who have similar aspirations, or maybe a group of friends that have spoken on a much higher level and you're seeking to spend time with them and just glean from their knowledge and experiences, is people who love you enough to be honest with you and
mm-hmm.
to critique. And because that's the only way that we're really going to learn is through people around us that are going to say, hey, your message was really powerful, but I would really encourage you to really pause for some added emphasis. That was a big thing for me, right? People are praising what I'm saying, but they say you need to pause and really let what you're saying land on people because it's really deep, right? It's very powerful. And if you go too quickly and you just brush over things, it might not have the ability to really land on your audience. Or another thing might be vocal variety. They might say, man, the content was great. The whole thing from start to finish, the substance was there, but you didn't have much fluctuation in your tonality, and so
Mm,
it felt very monotone. They're saying that because they care. They're not trying to hurt me. They're not trying. They're not trying to say, "Oh, you did a horrible job." They're praising things that I did well, and they're calling out the things that I could do to improve, to only become more impactful and more effective in my speaking abilities. And I heard a quote once that really resonated with me and applies specifically to this is that you want to spend time with people who are going to be willing in a loving way to hurt you with the truth and not comfort you with lies. Meaning
mm,
saying, "Oh, you did a great job. That was awesome. Okay." And then that's it. Well, maybe they didn't do a great job. Maybe there were things that I'm just calling out what I saw. And if you're telling me, hey, I want to grow and I'm asking you to hold me accountable to this growth, that's one of the most powerful things you can do is put yourself in an environment where people are going to tell you the truth in a loving, gracious way.
mm-hmm.
And I think that's one of the biggest things to start is surrounding yourself with people who will kindly guide you, course correction, and constructive criticism. That's probably
Absolutely.
my biggest
Yeah.
takeaway.
No, that's so important, especially when you're new and you're still kind of learning your way, what makes sense to you. And if you don't mind me add, I think another aspect to that is making sure it's people you respect. Anyone can kind of say some maybe good advice, anyone can say anything, but at the end of the day, if you don't say, "Hey, I know Caleb is doing this because he cares about me," or I respect Caleb because I know he's brought this to the table, or he's helped me in these places," you're not going to listen to it. And you're wasting probably your time, other people's time. And it just makes it harder for you to navigate what is a really great advice for you or what's not. So I think that's so important of having that type of community. So thank you so much for that. That's an amazing. I mean, there's so
Of
many great
course.
nuggets that you sprinkled out within, and there's so many great takeaways, but definitely that is the first place to start for any new speaker or re-emerging speaker. So Caleb, thank you so much for the time today. I really appreciate it. This was a blast. And like I said, you shared so many great points. I'm very thankful for your time.
Thank you as well, Macy. You're awesome, and
Oh,
I
thank you.
appreciate the opportunity.
Of course. And to everyone watching, I really appreciate you as well. Just to piggyback on Caleb's community, if any speaker is watching or listening and is interested in joining a free community on Facebook and online where it's all for speakers, helping other speakers form great connections and get on great stages, you can check the link in the description to join our Facebook group and our speed networking that happens weekly on Fridays. Thanks again for watching, and we'll talk soon. Bye.